we're back and we're shifting the conversation to talking about our little ones across the country. It's Child Stimulation Month, and we're joined by representatives of the Ministry of Education, specifically from the Quality Assurance Department. Development. All right. Early Childhood Education. We have two of the officers in with us. We have Lurleen Betson and Nadera Ross.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. So I was just sharing with you just the adorable photographs and videos that I've seen of the little preschoolers in their costumes on Friday. And we know this as the kickstart of Child Stimulation Month. So let's just talk about why this focus on this age group. Who wants to start?
Well, the focus starts very young. The foundation is laid at a very young age, and I always say early moments matter. And the earlier we start with the educational development, the social, the emotional, the cognitive, and all of that, the best start is early. So when we think about early childhood education, we want to lay that foundation, and not just lay a foundation, but a solid foundation at that. And when we do that with our 3 and 4 year olds, that transition into lower primary, transition into middle, upper, the entire educational system is like a breeze for them.
Yeah. It's literally like building the house. Like the stronger the foundation, the stronger the house you can have, the more resilient. Definitely. Now, we've seen over the years where even with the establishment of this department, that there has been more awareness. But my question is, how's the buy-in? Because school is not mandatory until 5, right? So it means that this very important age group is left up to a parent's decision as to whether or not they'll get them engaged.
Most definitely, and you made mention of seeing the parade and seeing the little ones all dressed up and so forth. Maybe we could give you a little background in terms of that, because it's not just a parade to have them fully decked out in their outfits and so forth, but what we're seeing from the parade are the different themes that runs through the curriculum, which are for the 3 and the 4 year olds. So you will see certain things like professions, so you would see some of them dressed as little nurses, doctors, etc. You would see alphabets, you would see letters coming out. So the parade isn't just a parade for a parade's sake, but rather to get the larger public to understand in preschool learning is taking place, and these are certain things that falls these are certain things that falls within the curriculum. And that's one of our biggest buy-ins, actually, because when a parent with a 3 or a 4 year old see that parade, sometimes the light bulbs goes off and they're like, oh, I want my baby to parade. And so that at least is a start to get them to know this is what is actually taking place in the preschool. So that is the main focus of the preschool parade, to get the larger public, the public at large, to understand this is what takes place inside a preschool setting.
Do we have numbers in terms of how many little ones are engaged in early childhood education?
The numbers for our preschoolers are 7,389, and the ship has to be manned by teachers, and countrywide we have 447 teachers teaching in our preschool centers.
And so what percentage of toddler age kids are that? Does that cover, sorry?
We have 54% coverage currently.
And that's up from what was, I think, 30 at one point?
To about 32, 33% thereabouts.
Now, there's this perspective and argument, I would say, that I've heard, where people are saying, you know what, we're shoving our kids into school too early. Kids are supposed to be kids, and supposed to be out there, they snotty nose, running out there, tumbling, and learning about life before they get into the formal structure. Because really and truly, learning is not only a formal thing. Learning is seeing, touching. That's what they do in a structured way at the preschool. How do you respond to that argument?
When we look at 3 and 4 year olds, one of the main things that we want everybody to understand is that inside a preschool setting, they're playing, but they're learning. We have to remember that young children learn through play. So when you see a child sitting in a classroom and having fun and manipulating the different activities there, that's how they're learning. Similar to what you said, children learn by seeing, by touching, by being around other people. And that's the entire trust of being inside a preschool center.
Yeah. I think we use our lens of what we did in preschool, which is like sit and memorize your alphabet, versus what you see now in preschool. And it's hard because I know one of the biggest battles, and I see it with parents all the time. They want the numbers. They want the grades. They want a four-year-old to say, look how smart my child is. She can memorize X, Y, Z. But you want them to play in the classroom. That's what the science shows is important. How do you ensure this is actually taking place, especially where the demands from who are pretty much your clients, the people paying for the school fees, are saying, well, they're not saying their numbers yet.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because we speak about partnership, and through partnerships, education cannot do it alone. And of course, our parents will need to be well educated in the importance of early childhood development and education. And when we have this partnership, we have Ministry of Health, we have Ministry of Human Development, who have that niche of parents before they even come to us. And when they come to us, they would have already gone through the motions of knowing, you know what, it's not all about the academics. My child needs to be holistically developed, and that holistic development encompasses the social, emotional readiness of that child, and the health aspect and all of that. So when they get to us, we are not only going to be focusing on the academics, but we want to take everything and bring it together.
Yeah.
Similarly, even though we go through the partners, one of the things that we have been working tirelessly against is to get our teachers to understand what is their role as a preschool educator. So what we have been doing for the past years is to our continuous professional development, which is where our teachers would go in the summer for classes and so forth. We try to get them to understand the whole theory behind how young children learn. Because if we can't change their mentality to understand that, the children need to play. Yes, they're going to be learning their 1, 2, 3s, their ABCs, but the mode in which they're utilizing is a play format. If we don't get our teachers to really understand that, we won't make it. So we have taken a step back as a ministry, and to try to get our teachers to understand, this is why we're saying utilize the play mode. Don't push our 3 and our 4-year-olds too hard to focus on the academics. What we're saying, like Nadera said, when we focus on the emotional and the social component of that child, everything else is going to flow eventually.
In fact, that's where they learn to thrive.
That's right.
Like how they survive this very rigorous academic system. But there is a major challenge in equalizing what's happening across the country. You know that I have a niece around that age, and I remember my sister looking at schools and clearly walking out of an institution that was private and saying, my child is not going there, because she knows they have to play. And when the teacher says, listen, we're not going to give much breaks. We are academic focused. You're talking a 3-year-old, a class for 3 years. So we have a problem where you are speaking about, listen, our children need to play through discovery, but we have institutions in this country that are saying, listen, we don't want play. They're going to learn everything from 3.
Yeah. And that's why I said we have to target our teachers. That's where our foundation is. Because as a ministry, we could be saying, this is the way, but if our teachers don't have that buy-in,
we're fighting a losing battle.
But look at it from this standpoint. They don't spend all day in the preschool.
No.
So even if the preschool has a more heavier lean on academics, the responsibility goes outside of just the teachers in the classroom.
Most definitely.
So how do we translate that to parents? How do we let them know, listen, you have a role to play? It's not just babysitting. So it's preschool babysits them in the morning, and then the real babysitter does it in the afternoon. You come in the evening, hug them 2 times, you go sleep, because we're tired.
Yeah. One way we go ahead. One way we combat that is we partner with the other line ministries such as health and human development, and so we do training outside of Ministry of Education. So we train like, for example, our rovers. We do literacy training with them to say, when you go, Rovers is from the Ministry of Human Development.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
that's through human development.
Yes. So what we do is we share with them, okay, if you're meeting a family setting, because their task is to go into the households and to train parents how to interact and socialize with their young child.
Yeah.
So we do that partnership with them to say, you know what, these are certain things we would like for you to help our parents to understand. We do outside training such as CCD, which is Care for Child Development, where we train other educators, other health partners, and they go out and they train others. So it's a rippling effect.
Even in the clinics, the people can do it there.
Yes, that's right. So, and when we say train, when we do our training, we make it realistic. For example, we would share with the parents that, you know what, when you're playing with your child, use pans. Use the metal spoons. Let them make noise. We tell them the importance of hearing and letting the children manipulate different stuff. Simple household items. We don't promote so much the technology aspect. It's good, yes. It's good, yes. But what we're trying to do is to get parents to understand you don't have to have money in order to interact with your child, and that's the direction in which we go.
You don't have to have all the leapfrog series.
And I'm sitting here and I'm watching Mr. Arthur's face like, okay, I'm not fully sold on that, but it's true that play and communication interaction that parent and child has, that, you know, that blossoms into something that you would be surprised as to the engagement and that back and forth that you and your child have through just simple things that you wouldn't even think or would look at and say, what can I possibly get out of a pot?
Yeah.
Or a spoon?
Or a rock.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Or even, you know, I remember us doing a story on C4D,
CCD.
Care for Child Development.
And just explaining the whole peekaboo game and what it does for a child. I mean, we just think we're being silly, but there's genuine concepts that they have to learn or that they learn through that process. But I want to go back to the technology issue because I think it was last year. I was floored because we had some neurologists and neurosurgeons come on the show, and there's been some recent studies that have finally confirmed what I think people had been suspecting for a long time, which is that it's dangerous for children, especially under the age of 2. Children under the age of 2 should have zero contact with technology, and I didn't know that, and less as they get older, because it's building things like anxiety, it's hindering cognitive development. And so this isn't some poco tiempo study that was done somewhere. This is like science saying, okay, we got to do something. Yes, it's great, but kids can't learn from a 2-dimensional world.
They can't communicate. They can't, that interaction, that verbal communication that we're talking about cannot happen, because if the child communicates to the tablet or whatever he or she is playing with, there's no reciprocating of that communication. So I will be talking and I'll be waiting for a response, and then there's no response. How can a tablet tell me, okay, what you're doing is great?
Yeah. The reinforcement that comes from it.
We're
and
not
it's so easy.
selling
I
it.
see how it's tempting. I babysit, and, you know, I break the rules too, because it's just easy. They are engaged, and it gives you a peace of mind for a little while. And that's what I wanted to touch on, because I think parenting is hard.
Yes.
Children demand a lot. And, you know, that specific age range, if it's just one, you can invest that time. But when you have multiple children, it's really difficult. How do you advise people in terms of the realities? You know, Kevin said you come home, you're tired. Or mom's been with them all day if it's a stay-at-home mom, or maybe both parents come home tired. What are practical tips that you offer so that after the preschool session, where hopefully they've been playing, they're still getting that engagement at home?
Well, what we try to promote is, we know that we're in the 21st century, we have more working mothers, we have more women in the workforce. But what we try to sell, and I'm looking at Mr. Otters here, what we try to sell is just take the time out for your young one. I mean, time is precious. Time goes, we don't interact as much. We come home, our lives are so busy. We come in, we go out, but all we do is try to sell. Take that time out to engage. You come home from a busy day, ensure that the one question that you ask your young one is, what is it that you did today? That simple question of asking what you did today sparks a conversation. And then it goes into me telling you what I did at school, me telling you, okay, something happened.
What my friend did.
Yes, and in those conversations, you get to learn if you're listening, which is a part of our team. It says, hug me, listen to me, read with me, help me grow. Each one of those things are actions that parents can do. You can hug your child, you can listen to your child, most importantly, read to your child, and in doing all of those things, it helps that child to grow.
I guess why you keep on looking at me is because I have my own perspective on it. Science, like everything else, education science, no different from any other science. I remember once they were saying that coconut oil was bad. So don't use it.
It is bad.
Well, you see, we're going to get into that. And I think there's a different perspective on it because I want to go back to the technology issue. I have a daughter who from 6 months, she was on her iPad. One of the brightest children out there right now, top 3 in her class. It has nothing to do with me, that's more to do with the smarts of her mother. But the point was that where technology is right now, it's very interactive. Leapfrog, for example, tells you that, very good job, could you try again? The shows on television, I think Dora, ask you questions, and after a while the children answer the television. It's a tool. So how do we not just throw the baby with the bathwater? Because technology is here. These Gen Zers, they are going, everything is going to be automated. Even when I go to the airport now with my daughter, it's normal for her to go up to this stand and talk to a machine. For me as a baby boomer, it is, something out of it. So how do we merge the two as opposed to just taking the baby out with the bath water?
And that's why I smiled when I initially said it, because maybe I came out from, we're not saying don't do technology any at all. It's merging the two. But a lot of times we find out that our teachers or our parents may just utilize the gadget and say, here. That's what we're trying to get people to not do.
Can I tell you something?
You know what they say? They say the interaction, it should be limited in time, and there's actually like markers that they give. But what they say is, if you're going to watch a video, if your child's going to watch a video, whether it's Daniel the Tiger, who teaches them great valuable lessons, but it's the internalization of what's happening. Like you talk with them.
Yes.
And can I share something? I have a friend of mine who blew my mind. He's a photographer. I don't want to call his name, but and he says, every Friday night, what he does with his children is he sits down and says, what do you want to learn about? Do you want to know how clothes are made? And he goes on YouTube and they sit together. He has a set of twins and a young son. And they sit and they watch these how-to videos every week. So my thing is that there is a way to utilize this technology to allow you. And afterwards they sit down, they eat ice cream and they talk.
Definitely.
They
And
talk.
that's the key.
Yes.
That's the
So
key.
maybe it's the standpoint of looking how to merge and incorporate the future into these little kids.
Definitely.
Right? What I wanted to ask though was, in terms of Child Stimulation Month, it's more about, would you say it's more about the parents than it is about the children? I know the children are really the focus of it, but at that age it's difficult for them to fully appreciate it. So what is the focus? Who is the target group for Child Stimulation Month?
Parents, children, and teachers. We always refer to a triangle because that triangle cannot fully operate if they're missing links. The child, it starts with the child. The parent has to be involved, and then the teacher plays an intricate role in all of that to ensure that that triangle comes together. So during the month of March, and not only during March, we try to emphasize the point of bringing in parents, letting parents know how important their role in the development of that child is.
Yeah.
So it's not only, the emphasis is not only on the child, but the parent, the teacher, the community, everybody that has that vested interest in early childhood education and development.
Yeah. I got a question, because I think what worries me sometimes, and I think we know very clearly, and I think anybody who invests the time to look at the research, that this is such a critical role that we take lightly. Like what you can do in those first 3-4 years can have impacts beyond, into your elderly ages.
Yes.
But we still don't have it mandated. We still don't have it where, some people are still pinching pennies until their child is 5 years old and then puts them into a formal structure, because then they don't have to worry about the financial burden as much, although there are fees they have to pay. What's the move? Because if we know this is a critical area, if we know that this is first step before you even move into step 3, what's the discussion taking place there?
The discussion in terms of that is that I have to tell you, we are making strides.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because it used to be only an education fight, but we now have the other 2 line ministries on board. So it's more people talking together to understand that, from birth or before birth, from within the womb to 3, like you said, rightly said, those are the critical years. So we do have plans in place. We have strategic plans to target the parents and so forth. And we are looking in terms of getting that ratified so that, it becomes mandated. It is now law that this is what we want, this is what we need to cover. So we're making strides, but we have to make sure that we are all going in the same direction and we're all saying the same thing, because we don't want one line ministry to be saying something else and then another one being saying something else. So presently there is a working group, a technical working group that comes together. We meet, we look at different strategies and so forth, and that's the line, the direction that we're going. So strides are being making. It is hope that is going to be law and mandated as soon as possible, but we are making strides in that line.
And for those who still need convincing, why do kids at this age need to learn to play? What are the benefits that we're talking about? Start with your long list now, so we can buy into it.
The most beneficial part of playing is that is the vehicle in which children learn how to play. You could sit a child down and you could go A, B, C until thy kingdom come, but if you don't do it in that interactive format, chances are, because the way the brain develops, it won't go in, it won't stick. But if you use a fun game, you use a little dance, a little movement, that's the way in which children learn how to play. So you do it through play, your child will learn.
Tell me something. Sorry. Go ahead.
And just to piggyback on what Lurleen said, we are doing it through play, but the activities that we're doing has to be developmentally appropriate. And when we do activities, it's not just taking activities for taking activities' sake. We have to look at our 3-year-olds, we have to look at our 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds and see, cognitively, socially, emotionally, all the aspects of how that child develops. When we do these play activities, we're structuring these play activities in such a way that, we're meeting milestones at the same time. So developmentally, the child will be getting what he or she should be getting at that particular age.
I'm wondering how are the classrooms evolving to this need? So in terms of, we already talk about what capabilities and skills a teacher at that level needs, but is the physical space, is the regulation in terms of proportion of children to teachers? Because I would think that level of attention, you can't have 30 picnic. It just isn't. I don't see how.
Definitely not.
I have 2 and I don't see how I can do it. So, is the physical classroom one evolving to accommodate for it? So it's not just like in my mother's day, where you draw and Bristol board and you color it, and is the physical classroom evolving? And also, let me start with that. Compound my question.
It is, because how it should be is 15 students to 1 teacher. We know we do have cases where there are more than 15, and whenever we visit those schools, or whenever, because we have partners in education, like for example, we have per district, we have an education officer with the responsibility for early childhood education in each district. So when they visit these schools and they see the disparity in terms of there are more than 15, in some cases 30, not a lot. But where we see those, we as we share with them, ask your principal to get you another teacher, because it should be 15 to 1. So in that light, we do know, and our teachers are fully aware of it as well, the the ratio that it should be. When you look at the classroom setting and so forth, I will say, generally, yes, our teachers are moving towards that direction. Of course, there is still room for improvement, and as well in terms of ministry-wise, we do realize there is need for more preschool. So I know our director was sharing with us yesterday that there is a plan in place that certain areas are going to get preschool centers. So looking at the teacher's perspective, I will say yes. Looking at ministry perspective, I will definitely
That's
say
good
yes.
news.
Yeah.
Can I ask my final question, which is, I'm sitting here looking at all these beautiful faces.
Yes, so cute. It's distracting.
All the light and promise in their eyes.
Yes.
They can be the next Andy Palacio, anything that they want to be. I want to fast forward to first form. 50% of them not going to get past that. That's what the statistics say. Does that make this time more important? I mean, we're here and we're with hope, we're beating our chests and we're talking, we're getting 50% up increase. But we're going to lose all of that hope and all of that joy by first form. Does that make this child stimulation month that's much more important? Because they're not going to be in this formal education system all their life. 1% of them get up to tertiary level education. Does that make this that much more important?
Most definitely, and the more buy-in we have and the more we get our parents and our teachers to understand the importance and the crucial element to early childhood and preschool students specifically, the more it's going to get better, because research has shown that when we overwork the brain at an early age, when you look for the child in standard 2, standard 3, you start wondering what happened to them.
There's a dip.
Yes, and that's what research is showing. So when we do our trainings and so forth, we try to get our parents to understand it. We try to share it with our district officers, we share it with our teachers, and until we all start coming together and really understanding it's not just getting our babies to learn ABC 1, 2, 3, but the crucial and the critical point behind it.
Yeah. Well, and I think in fairness though, because you can't use 12, 14 years ago numbers to say that's going to happen, because
there are other things within.
50% that perhaps will hopefully 12, 14 years from now make a difference in what we're seeing today. So I think once we're talking about investing time, proper education and development in our little ones, it's always a commendable effort. Ladies, thank you so much for coming in and sharing what's happening. This was just the tip of the iceberg as to why it's important, and I know all the schools are undertaking their own activities as well as some on a national level.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll find out about the bird taxidermy exhibit, so stay tuned.